You're taking me back to the sleepless nights, phone calls and candlelights. Those were the things I liked the most. And back when we were passing notes in school, spend our summers by the pool, talking about what we'd be when we're grown. Well, those were the days. You're taking me back. You're taking me back when the world was smaller and everything was ours. You're taking me back. You're taking me back when everything moves slower. You're taking me back to better days. To our favorite hits, running through a mixed CD we made. Just a couple of kids, nowhere to be, taking time for making memories, living life like we were runaways. Yeah, those were the days.
Good morning and welcome to SPERO DEI. My name is Tessa Sanders.
And I'm Jeff Sanders. And what I love about SPERO DEI is this is a place where I can ask questions. You know, I have a lot of religious doubts and questions of my own, and this is a place where I can feel free to ask those questions, really bring my own history. And I love that SPERO DEI is a place where that's an acceptable part of what this church is, and allows me to really be myself.
And one of the things that I love most about SPERO DEI is how welcoming and affirming this church is of people from a variety of backgrounds. So we've got friends and family members who are part of the LGBTQ community, and so it's really important for us to be able to bring them with us to church and to know that if they come with us, they will be welcomed and loved and cared for just alongside the rest of us. So that's something that's really important to me.
So we hope for you here at SPERO DEI, this is a place where you can have your own religious freedom, ask your own questions, kind of bring your own history, and really be yourself here. It's a great place for that.
We hope you have a wonderful experience at SPERO DEI.
I've seen the work of your hands, and I know, yeah, I know that you are good. I don't know you, but I've heard the love in your voice, and I know, yeah, I know that you are good. And I know that I have more than what I need, with the little, oh, the little that I know. I don't know you, but I felt the beat of your heart, and I know, yeah, I know that you are good. I don't know you, but I found this love in your eyes, and I know, yeah, I know that you are good. And I know that I have more
Hey, SPERO DEI. Welcome to our digital webcast, and wherever you're watching, whether it's here in Nashville, whether it's in some other city, state, or country, I want to welcome you to this wonderful and unique church called SPERO DEI. We are a place that is rethinking, reimagining Christianity, and somehow you have found us, and I'm just grateful that you're with us today. Well, today I want to talk about what it means to hear with your heart. I've been in this series called Hearing Your Sacred Voice, so today I want to talk about what it actually means to hear with your heart. And to do that, I want to teach you a new word. I love words. So I'm going to teach you a new Hebrew word. Now, let me say something about the Hebrew language. The Hebrew language has less words in it than the English language. So, of course, there's just as many thoughts and ideas and emotions in any human being. So because the Hebrew language actually has less words in it than our English language, Hebrew words become much more pliable. They dance much more. There can be several meanings in a Hebrew word. They're much more open. They're much more flexible. It's really a beautiful thing. So this Hebrew word I want to teach you, the word is kavanah. Now, this is an ancient word, and the concept of this word is in the scriptures. Now, the word itself is not in the scriptures, but what kavanah means and the concept of it, oh my gosh, it's all throughout the Hebrew scriptures. It shows up in the Christian New Testament. Jesus was a devout Jew, so he understood well the concept of kavanah. So what is kavanah? What does it mean? Kavanah means to be very intentional with your heart. It means your heart is moving in a certain direction with great intention. It also means feeling things sincerely. So not only do you think about it with depth, you feel it emotionally. So the word kavanah means intention. Now, I want to show you in the Old Testament where this concept shows up. It shows up other places, plenty of other places. But I want to show you from the prophet Isaiah. So where we catch the prophet Isaiah is things aren't going very well for the Hebrew and the Jewish nation. In fact, the prophet Isaiah is letting them know that perhaps their hearts are moving away from deep spiritual things. Their hearts are moving away from maybe a deep connection with God. So this is what Isaiah shares with them from the words of the Lord. The Lord said, "The people say they worship me, but their words are meaningless, and their hearts are somewhere else. Their religion is nothing but human rules and tradition, which they have simply memorized." So this is the whole concept of kavanah, that you can be part of a rote practice, you can be part of a rote repetition, you can even have beliefs that you won't even change. But kavanah means these things are deeply meaningful in your thoughts and heart. You feel them, you think them, and you're very sincere and intentional about them. It's as if the prophet is saying, listen, when it comes to your spiritual lives, put some heart in it, put some deep thought into it. Be very intentional. Let your heart flow that way, because this is deep and this is meaningful stuff. He's also saying it's so meaningful that don't avoid it. Don't have a heart or head that doesn't even think about these things or feel these things. So that's what kavanah means. You know, in the Jewish tradition, some parts of the Jewish tradition are very liturgical. Certain practices of Jews have certain prayers they say at certain times, at certain ways, certain times of the year. They have a certain order of things. If you grew up Catholic or Episcopalian or Lutheran or Methodist, maybe Presbyterian, you understand something about liturgy. There's a certain order, a certain way to do things. And by the way, having certain practices done a certain way that envelop tradition, that's a good thing. That can bring great meaning and great security. So that's the strength of it. But perhaps the weakness of it is when we start repeating things often or just have things historic in our ways, they can start to become rote. They can start to become meaningless. It's like our head and our heart is not engaged. And so kavanah means to engage with your heart and your head, with the flow of your heart and sincerely, so you deeply think it and so you deeply feel it. You know, some Jews pray 100 different prayers or blessings a day. So for them to pray that a day, my rabbi friend Flip was telling me about this, they very much have to engage in kavanah. More contemporary words for kavanah would be being present or awareness. That when you engage your awareness or your presence, when you start to take your noticer out and see things and think things and feel things, this is very intentional. This is kavanah. So if you are going to pray things often, like for a Jew would say those prayers, the whole heart set and mindset is to be kavanah. So they sense and experience God in their spiritual lives very, very present. So Jesus, as I mentioned a moment ago, Jesus and the early followers of Christ, they were all Jews. Don't think of the early followers of Jesus as Christians. Christianity started off with all Jews, and it was known as a Jewish sect. So Jesus being a good and devout Jew, Paul being a good and devout Jew, they would have been very familiar with the concept of kavanah. They would have prayed the Shema Prayer often. They would have prayed the Amidah prayer often, which is a lengthy prayer. So their hearts would have had to engage. Their heads would have had to engage intentionally, sincerely, and deeply. This is what kavanah is. Now, in the New Testament, this shows up as well. In fact, there's one showdown that Jesus has with the religious leaders of the day, and he puts in full demonstration the kavanah concept. The religious leaders of Jesus' day, not unlike a lot of religious leaders any day and even today, but the religious leaders of Jesus' day thought, you know, our perspective of God, our belief in God is the correct one. If you want to have a sincere, real, authentic, genuine faith in God, we have the right way and you have to do it this way. So in kind of a showdown in teaching the people while he's confronting them, this is what Jesus says to them in Matthew 6. Be careful. When you do something good, don't do it in front of others so that they will see you. When you give to those who are poor, don't announce that you are giving. Don't be like the hypocrites. When they are in their places of worship and on the streets, they blow trumpets before they give, so that the people will see them. So when you give to the poor, don't let anyone know what you are doing. Your giving should be done in private. Your Father can see what is done in private, and he will reward you. When you pray, don't be like the hypocrites. They love to be seen and pray publicly. The truth is, that's all the reward they will get. But when you pray, go into your room and close the door. He is there in that private place. He sees what is done in private, and he will reward you. And when you pray, don't be like the pagans. They say the same things again and again. They think that if they say it enough, their God will hear them. Don't be like them. Your Father knows what you need before you ask him. So this is how you should pray. And then in Matthew, Jesus goes on to teach them the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father. So here Jesus is saying to the people while confronting the Pharisees, listen, don't lose your Kavanah mojo. That don't let these things become rote and meaningless. Engage your deep thinking, engage your deep feeling about this. So I think in sharing this concept of Kavanah, which is really hearing with your heart, I have two questions for you. The first question is this: where do you think you could be more Kavanah? Where do you think you could be more intentional with your head and your heart? You know, in antiquity, the heart, we tend to think of, in our modern parlance, we tend to think of our heart as the seat of our emotions, and our head is really the point of our thoughts, which that's how we explain it in contemporary language. In antiquity, the heart was the seat of thoughts. But that said, where could you be more intentional in your head, in your heart? Do you need to do some of the deep theological rigors? Do you need to think more deeply about existential and meaningful things in your life? This is what it means to be Kavanah. Do you need to feel them? Some of you have a faith that is deeply meaningful to you. Do you need to re-engage your emotions about it and feel these things deeply? Now, the reality of what has happened with some of you, it certainly happened to me. This faith that I had held onto so long was no longer working for me. In fact, I lost my Kavanah mojo. Oh, I was committed to it. I was good at it. I was faithful in it. But my heart, it just wasn't working for me. So for me to actually be Kavanah, for me to re-engage my head and my heart, I had to deeply rethink about it. I had to deeply reimagine it. I actually had to let go of certain things, certain perspectives, certain beliefs. And in the letting go of this, oh my gosh, I totally re-engaged my thoughts. I had to feel the, oh no, my faith is shifting. And so I had to feel the uncertainty. I had to feel the fear of that. I had to feel the fear of what's going to happen to me on the other side. And what's sort of crazy is when people who shared that belief saw me going through this shift, it was like, well, what's happening to you? Sort of in their own way saying to be Kavanah is to continue to be faithful to what you've been faithful. And no, to re-engage my head and heart deeply spiritually, I had to do the hard work of engaging of the rigors of new thought and new feeling. So here, on one hand, I was losing a faith that I held onto, but oh my gosh, Kavanah was just erupting. My mind and my heart were re-engaged to the deep things of spirituality. I think this is what Jesus is challenging the people on, and this is certainly what he's confronting the Pharisees with, I think. Kind of like you guys are making huge assumptions about your own perspective. So this is what Kavanah is, and where could you be more intentional? Do you know who I think really gets this? I think the 12-step recovery people, they totally get kavanah. I think people that are in recovery and getting sober again, they totally get this. Because they understand what it means to be intentional with their mind. They've got to work through the healthy mechanics of getting sober again. In fact, they become even intentional with their body and willpower. And so they go through the healthy mechanics of being very intentional, very kavanah with their head and their body. But they also know they are just beginning to do the heart work. The whole 12 steps is about kavanah. Moving with a direction of your heart, with feeling and sincerity, of discovering who you are and who you're not, and why you chose addiction, why you move towards addictive behaviors. This is totally kavanah. The whole 12 steps is. And so one of the things we can be fooled by intention. Sometimes we assume intention is a genuine thing when we may be engaged in false intentions and we're actually hiding. Like, what do I mean by that? Well, like busyness. So when we see somebody very busy, efforts and, occupying a lot of busyness, we go, well, that seems very intentional. But sometimes busyness, I'm not saying all busyness, but sometimes busyness can be a form of hiding. You really don't want to engage with your head and heart. You don't want to do the deep rigors of deep feeling and deep thoughts. People even do this with spirituality. They over-spiritualize things. Everything becomes spiritual. God talk just infiltrates everything. They can't talk normal. They can't think normal. Everything has to become biblical, scriptural, and they just over-spiritualize things. So sometimes over-spiritualizing things, being very zealous, is a form of hiding because you don't have to really engage your deep thoughts, your deep transcendence and deep transformation of your heart and your head. It's sort of like infatuation. Infatuation is not love. Listen, every person I ever dated, I was infatuated with. Well, not every person, but you understand what I mean, right? But I think of my love with Liz. That is not infatuation. We've been married almost 30 years. Our love has been through everything. We have had to be so intentional with our minds and our hearts of working through things, working through our stuff. There's at times we were very unsure of how we would navigate this. And we felt those things deeply, the tension of it, the work of it. This is what kavanah is it's to throw your head and your heart into it because it's bringing you to a meaningful place. This is why zeal is one of the lowest forms of spirituality. How many people have you known that have been very zealous, right? Kavanah is about the full engagement of your head and your heart and feeling these things deeply. The Shema Prayer, I said that Jesus and the early Jewish followers of Christianity, Jesus would have often said the Shema Prayer, as Jews do today. And it is, without having the word kavanah in it, it's totally about kavanah. Let me share this with you. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Praise be his glorious sovereignty throughout all time. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words which I command you this day, you shall take to heart. You shall diligently teach them to your children. You shall recite them at home and away, morning and night. You shall bind them as a sign upon your hand. They shall be a symbol above your eyes, and you shall inscribe them upon the doorposts of your homes and upon your gates. This is the whole idea of kavanah. This is the head and the heart fully integrated, right? And this is also for the means of love. Not just to think love, not just to feel love, but kavanah means love in action. We think these things deeply, we feel these things deeply, that we act upon them. Remember, I said that one of the definitions of kavanah, not only does it mean intention and sincerity of feeling and emotion, it also means the direction of your heart, the flow of your heart. So this brings me to the second question I want to ask you. Do you think you embrace more the mystery of God in faith? Or do you think you cling to more having the mind of certainty of faith, of absolutes of faith? You know, 20th century Christianity, it really directed the Christian faith towards certainty and belief systems and very absolute doctrines. And so I'm suggesting something here very provocative, and it's this: that when you're able to embrace the mystery of God, when you're able to move and flow in the uncertainty of faith, that is actually the engagement of kavanah. That's the engagement. It takes intention to do that. It takes sincerely feeling that, wrestling that. But when you cling more to a faith that has to give certainty and absolutes, a faith that has apologetics for everything, a faith that has absolutes for everything, a faith that's always trying to defend its provability or its make sense-ness, then what happens is you create a faith that you go, okay, we literally have an answer for everything. And that's what happened to some of you. You had a faith that gave you an answer for everything. And when it gave you an answer for everything, your heart actually shrunk. You actually felt like your mind and your intellect was shrinking. It was just calling forth your obedience to just follow along, man. And you did it with infatuation. You did it with passion and courage. It took a lot of commitment, but it started to shrink your kavanah. It started to shrink your heart and your mind. In fact, for some of you, when you let go of that kind of faith, your kavanah re-erupted. Your mind was now fully engaged, even though it felt uncertain and fearful. Oh no, I think I'm losing my faith. What's going to happen on the other side? But yet, you're alive. You're alive. This is what happened with me in my faith shift, in my faith deconstruction. And folks, I am plainly admitting it's hard to be enveloped with kavanah. It's hard to deeply engage your mind into the rigors of rethinking theology and what God is and the meaning of spiritual faith. That's hard. It's hard to feel your emotions, to get in touch where you're intimate or not intimate with others or yourself or with God. It's hard to be emotionally vulnerable. I'm admitting that. But this is where the meaning of life is. God is in the kavanah process. I was just talking to a friend the other day, and we were talking about an old friend we share. And they were telling me that this friend just recently shared with them about a new church they started going to. And this is what this person said to my friend. They said, oh yeah, I need to go to a church where they just tell me what to do and tell me what to believe. I need to go to a church that's authoritative, where the pastor and the doctrine has authority over your life. I just want to be told what to believe and what to do. And when I was hearing that, I go, oh, wow. That's the very thing I needed to escape. Because it just shrank my whole Kavanagh mojo. So I'm admitting to you that when you have a faith that goes, I'm going to embrace mystery and uncertainty, I don't need to have a faith that has an answer for everything. Yes, I'm suggesting this is what keeps Kavanagh alive. You know, when you think of, in the Old Testament, the Hebrew name for God, in fact, I'm going to teach you a new word. I bet you this is a word you've never heard. Tetragrammaton. Have you ever heard that word? Tetragrammaton? No, it's not a new Sony PlayStation game. I know Sony just released a whole new PlayStation. In theology, the sacred Tetragrammaton is the Hebrew form of God's name, Yahweh. And so for a Jew, you couldn't even pronounce the name Yahweh. And so the Tetragrammaton was sacred. You could not pronounce it, right? You weren't to say it because it was so sacred, so holy. But I heard from one rabbi, what you could do is breathe it, because the name Yahweh sounds like breath, right? One is inhale, one is exhale. Yahweh, Yahweh. And in the Old Testament, God's name is associated with breath. And what's interesting in the New Testament, in John chapter 20, when Jesus is telling them he's no longer going to be physically with them, but spiritually he will be with them, and he's going to leave God in the form of the Holy Spirit who will live in them. They will have God's sacred voice that they'll be able to hear in them. This is what Jesus says in John chapter 20, in verse 21. Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I send you. And then this is what it says in verse 22. Then he breathed on them and said, receive the Holy Spirit. So here, God is so mysterious. In a sense, you can't even capture his name. But it's so close to you that you can breathe it. And breath is something that, right, the human diaphragm, you just can't do it one way. If you inhale, you have to exhale. And so what's interesting, Jesus breathes on them. He exhales his breath on them, modeling the giving of the Holy Spirit. And so when we say, yeah, it's like we take in God. When we go, way, it's like this God we've taken in, we now give this back. We breathe God in, we give this spiritual life back. And so God is accessible and is present as close is just Yahweh, Yahweh. It's such a beautiful thing. And so here's what I want you to do. Maybe right where you are, you could just bow your head and just for a moment, let's just breathe in God together. Well, as the music continues, there'll be a series of slides that are going to walk you through a time of attunement. This time of attunement is actually Kavanagh. It's a time for you to engage your mind and heart in action, and attuning your thoughts and heart to God, and awakening your mind and hearts to God, to moving your heart and head, your trust and faith into the action of your faith. Well, before we go, I just want to say a big thank you to those of you who are giving to SPERO DEI, those of you who are just supporting this very unique and important thing. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for your generosity, no matter how you are participating. And I want to say to those of you that maybe aren't giving to us yet, that if this church is important to you, the voice of how we're speaking of Christianity is important to you, I want to invite you to consider helping us in every way. This kind of church is so unique, so rare, especially in the whole cultural Christianity flow of things. This is such a unique thing. So if it's meaningful to you, we would just so appreciate you being part of it. And I thought maybe wherever you're at, that together, who's ever watching this, we could pray this generosity prayer together. Attuning to God with contentment is great gain. We bring nothing into this world and will take nothing out of it. We who trust in Christ devote ourselves to resisting greed, which draws goodness away from the human heart and pierces it with many griefs. We at SPERO DEI are determined to practice generosity with free hearts, fixing our hope on God and not in the uncertainty of wealth. We desire to be rich in love, sacrifice, and good deeds, willing to share from all that we have, laying up for ourselves spiritual treasure that will not decay, but will shine in the age to come. And may this be true of you, may this be true of SPERO DEI.
Well, that's our service, and we hope that it was a meaningful one for you.
We have a lot of exciting things coming up at SPERO DEI, so watch through the next couple of slides to see what's coming up, and we'll see you next week.